I'm Eric Anderson. Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, looking for a bright spot at the end of a stormy day in San Diego. The on and off showers that left schools and roads all wet.
I'm Peggy Pico. A new gun rights lobbying group has started in San Diego County. My conversation with the group's executive director about its mission. Also ahead, hundreds of tiny earthquakes shake California every day. How the little quakes reshape San Diego's coastline and surf.
If nothing else, the nuclear industry is optimistic. They tend to believe that things will be optimum. They don't really plan for the worst.
The fallout from shutting down a nuclear plant in the North County, the consequences facing neighbors after Congress failed to find a spot to store all that nuclear waste. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. San Diego drying out from a November storm today. Some students remembered to pack their umbrellas as quick showers hit San Diego State University this afternoon. High winds whipping out any lingering heat and humidity. Drivers did need their windshield wipers, as you can see here this morning. This along the 805 just south of the 8. And clear skies left behind some rainbows. This from the 8 on the border of Mission Valley. And still chasing rainbows in Mission Valley, Jeanette Hernandez shared this photo with us via Twitter. Forecasters say that showers may continue through tomorrow in San Diego County, and there may be a warming trend on the way for the weekend. Looking ahead, the 60s and 70s expected along the coast. Inland areas expect temperatures in the 60s and 70s. Up in the mountains, it's going to be a little bit cooler, temperatures in the 50s and 60s, and then out in the deserts this time of year, about 70 degrees or so as we work through the weather there. Following up on the fallout over San Onofre, KPBS told you about new evidence about Southern California Edison. It showed that the company knew about potential problems with those steam generators that ended up leaking. This was before they were installed. Today, lawyers announced a new lawsuit against the California Coastal Commission. Attorneys want to revoke the permit that allows nuclear waste to be stored near the public beach by the plant.
San Diego is facing maybe the worst threat to its safety in many decades.
Allison St. John, KPBS's North County Bureau reporter, says the latest revelation only adds to concerns about the safety of the company's plans to store tons of radioactive waste fuel that has been stored on that site.
The site where Edison is storing radioactive spent fuel at San Onofre is sunk into the cliffs right next to the Pacific Ocean, a little north of the familiar dome. Edison, like all other nuclear plant operators, expected Congress to pick a permanent nuclear waste storage site by now, but that has not happened. Tom Palmisano, Edison's vice president for decommissioning, is confident in the company's plan to add 75 more canisters to the 50 that are already there.
You're looking at the existing dry fuel storage installation, which is a stainless steel canister stored horizontally in an above-ground steel module, or concrete module. That's where the new partially below-grade system will be installed. It will be set back approximately 100 foot from the ocean behind the seawall. This seawall, I believe, is 27 foot. That is designed and sized for the maximum expected tsunami that would occur.
The plan is to store the more recent waste in partially buried vertical canisters encased in concrete. The reason it cannot be completely buried is because it's too close to the groundwater table.
If you had to choose a place to put this that was the worst place you could think of, right here on the coast within 100 feet of the water and inches from the water level would probably be, that's the worst place we can think of. Guess what the industry has chosen? That spot.
Ray Lutz of the watchdog group Citizens Oversight Project says somewhere in the California desert would be better. Edison says it would take years to get a license to store the waste elsewhere. Lutz says after installing faulty steam generators, the company's track record doesn't inspire confidence.
If they fail on this plant, just keeping it operating, what makes you think they're going to make good decisions on this million-year problem that we have here?
Lutz's group is challenging a recent decision by the California Coastal Commission to give Edison a 20-year permit to store more nuclear waste on site. The commissioners voted unanimously, though Commissioner Mary Schallenberger was aware of the risks.
A radioactive leak onto one of our beaches would definitely have an impact on coastal access.
People surfing can be seen from the plant, and within a couple of miles there are strollers and sunbathers on the beach. An estimated 8 million people live within 50 miles. Carlsbad, for example, is less than 25 miles away.
I'm just concerned.
Schallenberger had a question for the regulators. Why is there currently no way to inspect the canisters for leaks?
Why is it we're not asking for that information prior to issuing this permit?
Mark Lombard, Director of Spent Fuel Management at the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, admitted there is no way to inspect the canisters yet, but he said they're working on new technology using tiny robots.
Even we're not comfortable with the technologies that exist today, but it's very soon in the future that those technologies will exist that will be good enough to be able to detect cracks and also detect how deep those cracks are.
However, the contractor designing the canisters for San Onofre, Dr. Chris Singh, president of Holtec, said at a recent meeting that finding and repairing a crack might not be possible.
My personal position is that a canister that develops a microscopic crack, and all it takes is a microscopic crack, you're going to get released to precisely locate it. SELFIE, location where it will occur, is a tall order.
Palmisano remains confident.
I'm confident in the current status of the canisters that are loaded. I'm confident in the new canister system, and we will have the inspection technology in place.
Workers had installed a seawall, protective seawall, around the plant that was nearly 15 feet tall. Unfortunately, the tsunami that day was nearly 45 feet tall.
David Lochbaum of the Union of Concerned Scientists advised Edison, after the experience at Fukushima, that burying the radioactive fuel would be better than leaving it in spent fuel pools. But, Lochbaum says, while confidence is the nuclear industry norm, their track record does not always warrant it.
If nothing else, the nuclear industry is optimistic. They tend to believe that things will be optimum. They don't really plan for the worst. For example, the problems that led to San Onofre being closed, the steam generator tubes, when the plant was built and purchased, were thought to last forever. That didn't happen. But the expectations were that things wouldn't go bad.
Efforts to find a permanent storage site have failed after more than 2 decades.
The stainless steel canister.
Palmisano, however, remains characteristically confident confident initiatives to find interim storage sites in Texas or New Mexico will succeed.
What I'm confident over the next 10 to 20 years, these facilities are very likely going to get licensed and built and provide us the option we need.
Holtec's storage canisters are warranted for 25 years, though the concrete bunker they'll be buried in is only warranted for 10. Chances are high the nuclear fuel may remain on site for many decades more, stretching confidence levels to yet untested limits. Alison St. John, KPBS News.
KPBS video journalist Katie Shuloff helped put that story together. Some police stations and libraries in San Diego will soon be powered by the sun. The City Council today giving initial approval to install solar panels on 25 city-owned properties. The project was unveiled last month. City staff say it'll save taxpayers about $22 million over the next 20 years. The council has to give its final approval before construction can start in the spring. Stadium dreams are on their way to the Big Apple. San Diego officials will fly to New York City next week to make their case for a new football stadium in Mission Valley. Representatives of Oakland and St. Louis will also present their stadium proposals to NFL owners. The NFL widely expected to decide early next year if Los Angeles will get an existing NFL team next season. Some San Diego teachers are saying that interim measures promised by the San Diego Unified School District to deal with hot classrooms won't work. This is a look at hot days for each year in San Diego since 1950. Ingrid Lobet with KPBS News partner iNewsSource joins us to give us an update on the state of cool schools in the county. So Ingrid, teachers are struggling with this issue. What's going on?
San Diego Unified is the largest district in the county, and they're working on a timeline to bring air conditioning to all classrooms. In the meantime, the district is providing each school portable air conditioners for 2 cool rooms. But the teachers are not convinced it's working. Allison Curry has a classroom of 8- and 9-year-olds at Balboa Elementary. She says she has to crowd in with 3 or 4 other classes in one of these designated cool rooms.
I'm trying to keep my class as contained as possible, and then his class comes in, and so they try to scoot to another corner, and the next class comes in, and then we try to move into another room.
We have
and then
4 different classrooms.
A different
same
non-third grade classroom came in, and so it's just, you know, the kids can't concentrate. They're looking at their friend from another class.
Curry also mentioned if she moves to a different room, it can mean she loses her lesson plan.
My lessons are planned on basically a presentation software that connects to the computer and connects to a smart board. That's not there. So my whole lesson that's prepared there, we can't do it.
So are other school districts in the county doing a better job with this?
iNewsSource has been looking into that. And we asked each of the 43 districts in the county how many classrooms lack air conditioning. It looks like San Diego Unified is in the minority. 9 districts have not yet responded, but 32 districts in San Diego County report they are fully air conditioned, meaning air conditioning in every classroom. San Diego Unified now says the district does plan to install air conditioning in every classroom, but there's no timeline.
Ingrid Lobet with iNewsSource. Thanks, Ingrid.
My pleasure.
A new group of gun rights advocates has organized in San Diego County. The group formed in response to a national push to tighten gun laws. Peggy Pico talks with the group's leader about what it hopes to accomplish.
The San Diego County Gun Owners PAC calls itself the voice for local gun owners. Here with more on the group's mission is my guest, Executive Director Michael Schwartz. And Michael, this is the first pro-gun rights organization in San Diego. Why form this group now?
I feel like we have a lot of representation in Washington, D.C. at the federal level. We have a lot of representation at the state level in Sacramento, but there's a lot of need at the local level here in San Diego for representation. We have 18 city councils, we have a county board of supervisors, and we have a sheriff, and it's just not quite getting the attention that it needs in San Diego.
What does the group want to accomplish?
Well, the 4 things we do are Second Amendment advocacy on a local level, meaning city councils, county board of supervisor, sheriff, that sort of thing. Second thing we do is organize gun owners. So there's a community of gun owners in San Diego, and a lot of them feel like they're kind of out on an island by themselves. So we want to give them opportunities to get involved in the process.
The process
of advancing, protecting, and restoring Second Amendment rights. Third thing we do is fundraise to support all our efforts, and the 4th thing we do is work with the gun shops to do the previous 3 things.
And speaking of working with local gun shops, what is the gun debate like here in San Diego? How is that being felt?
Well, I think the #1 issue that people ask me about in San Diego is the ability to obtain a concealed weapon permit, and that is completely in the hands of Sheriff Gore, and he's been extremely restrictive. He's actually been sued in court. He's most recently lost at the 9th Circuit Court of Appeals, and he still won't issue concealed weapon permits.
There was also the issue in Carlsbad, right? The gun store, and then also this year, I think, trying to talk about getting a shooting range going.
Yeah, Carlsbad has 1 gun store, Gunther Guns, and they had to fight tooth and nail just to open. They wanted to turn the rest of their warehouse into an indoor recreational educational shooting range, and the city did not want a shooting range. After a lot of effort by a lot of different volunteers, the city council recently voted to add indoor shooting ranges to their zoning code.
Well, you wrote an op-ed piece in the San Diego Union Tribune following the shootings on the college campuses this past October. But you said no gun law will stop mass shootings. Why do you think tougher gun laws won't stop mass shootings?
Well, what I specifically talked about was the proposals that were happening right after the horrible tragedy in Oregon. And people that were writing these solutions didn't have the facts. They just immediately fell back on the same old gun laws that have been proposed. and have proved to be unpopular and ineffective. So what I was saying was that the proposals, the specific proposals that were being floated out there, were not going to be effective. There are really two groups of people that are spiking the numbers when it comes to crime using a gun, and that's the mentally unstable and repeat offenders. And those are the things we need to focus on.
Well, would you support then universal background checks on everyone, including people who have mental health issues?
Well, what I support is the ability for people to have the choice to protect themselves with the tool that they choose. We're not trying to force our opinion on anybody. We're trying to stop others from forcing their opinion on us.
But universal background checks for the people who are dealing with mental illness?
I think that we need to have a number of proposals for people that are mentally ill. Saying that I support universal background checks or don't support universal background checks leaves out a ton of detail that you can't just sum up in one sentence.
Well, so far this year in the U.S., there's been 319 mass shootings, meaning mass shooting being defined as 4 people or more were hit by gunfire, according to the website Mass Shooting Tracker. What should be done to prevent mass shootings here in the U.S.?
Well, again, the two groups that are committing these crimes are repeat offenders and the mentally unstable. So we need to address the mentally unstable. Most of these shooters have been proven to be mentally unstable. There are all kinds of warning signs. And what I would like to do is make sure that people have the tools to be able to protect themselves so that the stories about mass shootings turn into stories about people being able to stop or prevent a crime.
We're going to have to end on this briefly. Lieutenant Governor Gavin Newsom introduced a proposed ballot initiative that would, among other things, ban high-capacity magazines and require background checks on ammunition purchases. How will your PAC work against this measure if it makes it to the ballot?
Through education. All 5 of the parts of his measure have been struck down by Sacramento. They've been proven to be ineffective, bulky, expensive. They don't make any sense. They're not really effective. And that's not me talking. That's the representatives in Sacramento who have already voted this down. So it's not going to be hard. We're going to need a lot of people, but we're going to need to educate the public and make sure that they understand that their representatives already saw that these proposals won't work.
Michael Schwartz, thank you so much.
Thank you.
There is a race to the ballot for a pair of minimum wage measures. Today, California's largest union and the Union State Council filed competing measures to boost wages. One would raise minimum wage by $1 an hour until hitting $15 in 2021. The other aims for $15 an hour by 2020. Officials hope to merge those initiatives eventually. A new study finds that California spent more than $9 billion treating people who were morbidly obese in 2013. KPBS health reporter Kenny Goldberg says morbid obesity is a growing problem nationwide.
The study in the journal Health Affairs says the nationwide costs of treating morbid obesity were $69 billion in 2013. People who are severely obese are at least 50% above their ideal body weight. The report estimates 3.2 million Californians fall into that category. UC San Diego's surgeon Santiago Horgan says it's not simply a matter of bad eating habits.
Sometimes you have a genetic predisposition to be obese. So obesity is not about eating cheeseburgers. It's a much more complex disease.
People who are morbidly obese are at high risk of developing high blood pressure and diabetes. Kenny Goldberg, KPBS News.
California has about 10,000 each year earthquakes. Most are small and they're not even felt. But as Peggy Pico explains, the tiny quakes pack a powerful punch when it comes to reshaping the state's geography.
Joining me to talk about the effects of California's shifting ground is my guest, Keith Meldal, professor of geology at Maricosta College and author of the book Surf, Sand, and Stone: How Waves, Earthquakes, and Other Forces Shape the Southern California Coast. And Keith, what's considered a small quake in California, and how many do we typically have?
We can have dozens per day. A small earthquake would be pretty much anyone that nobody would feel. We pick them up with sensitive instruments called seismographs, and they're happening all the time. It's like the earth is crackling under our feet.
In your book, Surf, Sand, and Stone, you describe that these forces shaped California's southern California's coastline, I should say. How do little quakes, are they included in that?
Yeah, they all do a part of a big work, which is really that we're sandwiched in this fault shattered zone between the Pacific Plate and the North American Plate. And the Pacific Plate is trying to take us toward Alaska. Every little earthquake, every big earthquake, it all is part of a Pacific Plate's relocation campaign for our region. We're sliding toward Alaska about 2 inches per year, and those little quakes all help us get there.
Nudge us along. I love the relocation campaign. I haven't quite heard it that. Moving up to in size when it comes to earthquakes, let's talk about the San Andreas Fault. How has the side-by-side movements of that major fault actually changed our region's geology down here?
The San Andreas is really the biggest player in this in the shifting game where we have, but all of Southern California is a sliced up mess of faults that start with the San Andreas and stretch west all the way across San Diego, even 100 miles out to sea. And depending where you are in that bunch of slivering faults, you're all heading basically toward the northwest. Now the San Andreas is the one that's doing most of that moving that I was mentioning, of moving us toward Alaska. And as it tries to move, it stores up energy in the rocks bending, and eventually when those rocks can't take it anymore and they snap, that gives us a big earthquake, and that could very well happen on the southern San Andreas in the near future.
And you say near future and big, if you could qualify those for me.
Near future could be in 5 seconds or in 50 years. Is that
That's okay. 5 seconds to 50 years. And when you say big, what
more than a magnitude
big?
7, which is a very destructive earthquake. And I say that because the other parts of the San Andreas have had magnitudes 7.8, 7.9 in historical time. Fort Tejon in 1857, San Francisco in 1906. The southernmost fault could very well do that. Again, it hasn't done it for more than 300 years, which is worrisome.
Let's talk a little bit about the surf angle of this. How do these earthquakes actually influence our surf? Does it make for bigger waves?
Well, what happens with our surf, and I have a whole chapter in the book about why surfing waves form where they do, is that when the waves come in here, if they manage to get through the gaps between the big islands offshore, they interact with the seabed in ways that pop up big waves in certain places and not in others. So if you have an area where the rocks are shallow, and maybe they've been pushed up because of earthquakes, it'll tend to focus the waves and give big surfing waves there. If you have an undersea canyon, it'll also create a situation where the waves will bend and make big surfing waves.
Let's talk about this. We recently saw a mudslide in L.A. from the rain, and with this year's El Nino forecast coming, what areas do you think are most at risk here in San Diego?
San Diego has a lot of steep slopes and steep mountainsides. Any steep mountainside, especially one that's burned recently, and also one that may have, and that's going to be made that much worse by the drought, because if the plants are not doing as well as they would otherwise, the roots tend to hold the soil in place. So San Diego is pretty vulnerable to big rains and mudslides. If you're near any kind of a steep slope, especially a burned one, I would say that's a place to keep an eye on.
Now, you write about coastal development and its environmental impact in relationship to all of this. Could you highlight for us what the situation is? How is, let's say, coastal homes or these retaining walls influencing the environment?
Well, I think when we meaning modern society, settled California in big numbers after World War II, we marched our homes and businesses right up to the edge of the sea, thinking that edge was somehow a stable thing. And that's an illusion that we've invested in, and we're asking for trouble as a result of that. That beautiful view that you have on the edge of the bluffs is there because of hundreds of feet of erosion. The waves have pushed the bluffs back to where they are now, and just because we've started to realize that in the last few decades doesn't mean the waves are going to stop. The rate of erosion of our bluffs here is several inches per year. And doesn't sound like much, but if you add it adds up to hundreds of feet, even over the course of recent human history. And right now, what we have is some of the most expensive real estate in the world, enjoying that ocean view, and it wants the ocean to stop doing what it's been doing to create that view in the first place. Mm-hmm. It's a losing battle. We can postpone the sea for a while, but we can't stop it.
I was going to say, a lot of cement, though, is holding that up. Doesn't that work?
It will in the short term, and maybe that's enough for some people, 10 or 20 years.
All right. Yeah. So much more to read about. Author Keith Meldahl, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Forget about the I voted sticker. The next big deal at the polls may be a ballot selfie. Now, a state lawmaker is introducing a bill that allows California voters to snap those pictures at polling places. Right now, it's against the law. Supporters say that ballot selfies may actually encourage more people to vote. Volunteers planted the future at San Diego's Balboa Park today. It's part of an effort to keep the city's signature park attractive for years to come.
We're going to widen this hole a little bit, and we're going to raise this up. It's going to take teamwork to lift these out because these are 24-inch boxes.
Arborist Michael Paylett gave volunteers a quick course in tree planting. He explained the proper size for the hole, compaction, and how mulch can help these fledgling trees take root. 47 trees got new homes in the park. City Parks official Casey Smith says volunteers are refreshing the park's appearance ahead of this winter's rains.
People love trees, and they love Balboa Park, and they love seeing the different types of trees and the different types of species that we have.
The drought-tolerant trees range from the uniquely local Torrey pine to the Guadalupe cypress. This ornamental peach tree is just one of the many kinds of trees being planted in Balboa Park. The idea is to diversify the kinds of trees and to make sure they're drought tolerant.
Part of diversifying is including a lot of those species. Yes, we do have a lot of indigenous native species like Torrey pines and oaks, but we're also trying a lot of different species like araucarias and other things that are not native to San Diego County, but they're native to drought areas and areas that gets very similar rain amounts that we have.
Park officials hope to plant 100 trees a year to help keep the park a vibrant and green destination. They're also planting seeds for people like Maria Ramirez.
I had an exciting day today. I was working, I was helping, planting trees.
All the trees planted today were grown at the Balboa Park Nursery. The city, the Balboa Park Conservancy, and the San Diego Foundation worked together to make the tree planting happen. You can find tonight's stories on our website. It's kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks very much for joining us. We'll be back here again tomorrow. Have a great evening.